Okay, so quick note before I get started. There are restrooms through that door if anybody needs one. So feel free to hop up anytime. So who's new? Who's first timer? All right, how's it going? I'm Brian. I'm leading the team of expert planners and architects and artists in the back of the room here. That's what all the noise is you might hear because they're going to keep on working while we're talking. But what we want to do is walk you through pretty quickly what we've heard so far, what we've done so far, and what we've done with what we've heard so far. And then at the end, after I go through this pretty quickly, we'll get questions and comments and feedback like we always do. And jot that down, and then we will continue on. And then the next day, this evening and tomorrow, and up until Tuesday night, we'll be working to refine all this stuff based on the input you guys give us. So you want to put the lights off for a second here? It's pretty bright projector, but okay. So for those who missed the opening presentation, this was us around the corner. We had about 70 people there, which is a good turnout, especially for a study area of this size and a community of this population size. So we were pleased with that. We had a lot of good participation. We broke out into tables, and all the maps you see around the walls are all the work that you guys did. And it's kind of like a rock star setting. We never had colored lights before on the walls. So that made me feel pretty cool. So we're going to use these pictures in our marketing materials. So this was a pretty intense session, and everybody had a good time. So we took these maps and saw lots of insights and lots of new ideas and things that people have been thinking about for a long time. And we then pulled out a lot of the big ideas. So I'm going to read these to you really quickly. Redevelop Mass Road with more inviting stores and restaurants, increase sidewalks for walking, add bike lanes along main roads, improve traffic flow along Mass Road by removing/adjusting traffic lights. Too many dead-end streets, add more connections. However, some people said don't connect existing streets. So that's the way that it works in this process. Increase public access to water and public spaces from neighborhoods. Relocate or improve the elementary school. Remove restrictions on business that want to develop. And make a center for Pinardville with a central civic area. So these weren't the only ideas, of course, but they're the ones that seem to come up more and most often. So we like to get those down and start to think of some things. So before I go any further, one thing I'll say is the things that the drawings that we've done so far, based on the input we've received, show a multitude of perspectives. Now, some things you may love, and some things you may hate. So don't think you hate the whole drawing or the whole idea just because you don't like one idea. So let's make sure we kind of are more surgical in our critique and review of what we've done, because in the end it'll help you guys. Because if you just say, I hate the whole thing, then you end up losing the stuff you do like. So we can talk about the specifics that you don't like. And also these are, as we said the whole time, these are just ideas. So the planning part of it is much less, in some ways, important. It's exciting and helps us as we move forward. The zoning part, that's not really easy to show on the screen, especially at this point, and it's at least the least sexy part, is the part that really, is what makes things legal and makes, those are the rules. So we need to be focusing on that. So the planning part is just big ideas. So we had lots of meetings where we started to ask people, hey, here's some things we heard in the opening presentation. Tell us more specifics about this. These are sort of technical meetings, and I got lots of education about some different ways of thinking. And we talked about, we had our transportation engineer here, and he actually confirmed a lot of the things that you guys as amateur transportation engineers who drive this road every day were right. We said one thing that's interesting is that the traffic volumes on Mass Road are going down, which is surprising probably to some people because it seems like, it's getting worse and worse. The increased congestion is due to the increasing number of driveways and poor signal coordination. So each of those curb cuts that go into the businesses, that's where you start causing those problems. And then the signals that everybody so rightly pointed out, there's a lot of them, and what he found is they're just not coordinated well. So we heard that the Hannaford light when it was out for 8 months, everything worked better than when there was a light.
No, that was the job.
Oh, sorry,
The right aid.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was fine for Mass Road,
Got it.
but it wasn't fine for people who were trying to get into Rite Aid or out of Rite Aid or
our
up Joffrey
street,
Street and come out.
Got it.
So,
Thank you. See, that's why we do this. See,
You were close.
sometimes we get it wrong. We probably have it written down right, but my memory can only take so
I'm
much.
not willing to sorry.
And then there's just too much. He said there's too much reliance on Mass Road for circulation because everything has to go onto Mass Road. I mean, it's like no wonder that it gets all clogged up. So this was his quick little sketch. There's too much of this in and out of Mass Road instead of more of this. What you start to see, what he's showing here, is actually a secondary circulation pattern, and you can start to see it in one of the blocks up here at the end, the main intersection up here. I can't remember the road, but I'll show you when I get to the map. I think where there's basically the drive-through, not the drive-through, like where you're not a pickup window, but you go behind one business and you can go through to the next business too. So you don't have to get on Mass Road to go over to the next business. And so that's kind of what you're talking about, a secondary circulation system there. So we talked about a character-based approach, and I showed you guys images of these different character zones, and I showed you images from around the country that weren't specific or related to this place, starting with the most rural and natural areas, getting into agricultural, suburban, and then going all the way on to the special districts, which would be like the universities. So here's what that starts looking like in real life. Your version of these things. So now we've been out and started to know what's going on here a little bit. Really cool, and you probably heard me say this before, but somebody needs to go hold this thing up before it falls down because it's like your one icon in Pinardville, I think. And it, as it goes now, it's not going to last because there's trees growing through it and all kinds of stuff. I understand the roof got redone not too long ago, so that's good. That means it's on somebody's radar screen. But even the Boy Scouts could help. So I don't know, something you can do with that because it's really cool. So here's some more. This is amazing. This is your cliff system here. It's like, thank goodness for these trees. This is your guardrail because otherwise there's no surviving if you want to go down this way to the rail trail. So we need to. We heard from a lot of people that we need to work on making more connections to the rail trail that aren't death-defying. So we've been thinking about that. This is really cool. What an amazing asset and amenity to have that running along. So getting to the second zone. This is sort of agricultural in nature. This is in the village, but it's it still has this kind of agricultural function. Getting into the third zone, sort of typical street that you see on any of the streets along the. These are your ribs, like Mass Road is a spine, and these are your ribs, right? Getting into the fourth zone. This is obviously some of the village stuff. Pretty intimate, pretty low scale, but mixed use, commercial kind of things going on, which is kind of cool. And here's your special district, or one of them. We found you have a couple, but this is the college for those who haven't seen it. But it's amazing. Like you don't see it, especially in a place this small. I was imagining we're going to go over there and see some kind of 1950s community college, whatever. And I was like,
It's not.
Beautiful school and campus.
yeah. So this is wow, what a gem, what an asset. So a lot of people said, as we're thinking about the idea that was thrown out about looking for how to create a heart of Pinardville, a lot of people talked about the oval. Which is not so much an oval, actually, when you look at it. It's more of
It's like an oval when you're going around.
yeah, exactly. It's more of a rounded triangle or three ovals that meet in the center. You can look at it that way. But anyway, really cool to start to study it and see, the interesting configuration of it there. But the point is, that there is the civic space in the middle that's defined by the buildings around the edge. And then when you get on the ground, you have great places like this, and this is what it feels like. So you guys have this stuff already in the village going on, but you don't have this stuff. Even in the village, it was like, there's that one little place on the corner with the kind of the plaza thing, but still not a civic space like a lot of other New England towns and villages have. So lots of lessons to be learned there. So we started looking at the idea of a greenway, so sort of green infrastructure. I noticed when I was looking at the GIS maps, there's lots and lots of green on the map, but they don't ever really kind of come together anywhere. So you have, for those who care about habitat, animal habitat and stuff, animals like for their habitat to be continuous. For those who like to walk on trails, it's nice when the trail is continuous. So there's those kind of things. And so we were looking at, how to integrate working with your existing rail trail, tying in some connections here, picking up on some of the areas of scenic beauty that are already in Pinardville, and then kind of making some loops because we know people like loops. Then there are some areas where you just couldn't connect with wilderness or vegetation, so actually picking up on a few streets that come right up to it, and so the streetscape would then kind of carry you on to the next point at which you could then go on the trail, and then going in through some of these. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the things that we're going to show you, and as in the planning portion of this, we looked at property lines, and this is going to freak out everybody who's concerned about property rights. But because we heard a lot about that, if you didn't know. So we looked at property lines to try to be, kind of more realistic about stuff. But things like trails and things, as with the rail trail, the rail trail used to be owned by somebody, and then it had to turn into it. So some of this stuff in Europe, we were hiking on a trail in Switzerland or something, and all of a sudden we came to this fence, and it says there's a sign on the fence that says, "Please close the fence behind you. Trail carries on this way." We're walking through, and I hear these big bells. What's going on? And we come around the corner, and there's this cow with a giant bell, bigger than you could imagine he could hold up with his big head. And he's just sitting there munching away, and I realized that we're walking through somebody's pasture, and it was just what you do. They just let people go there. And here, of course, with all kinds of lawsuits and stuff, you probably couldn't get insurance for that or whatever. But we recognize when we make blue dots that are so-called trails on people's property that we can't just do that. So this is kind of neat to start to think about for the people who talked about connectivity, pedestrian-wise. And so that's backwards. And then we had to enhance a couple of areas to start to pull these little tendrils across. They're wanting to reach one over to the next, and they can't quite make it because we've capped them or put them in a pipe or whatever. So those are some of the things that we were thinking about. So we started to analyze the area here and really start to focus on kind of this overall infrastructure here. My trail system kind of goes on top of this, but we realized that one thing that connects things really well is the power easement. And I know it's kind of ugly right now, but there's a lot of places around the country who've taken power line easements and done really cool stuff with them. Some of them, that's where all their sports fields are and stuff, but others they've just done cool stuff with, not just people in their four-wheelers, tearing up the grass. So anyway, so you can tie into that if you wanted to. Obviously, gets you from the river over to the college really nicely, and kind of works in with the master trail system that I was looking at. And we're starting to look at a primary pedestrian network here, secondary pedestrian network with the ribs, looking at bike loops. People talked about wanting to have a bike loop here. And obviously the streets that are there now, you can bike on them. It's not the most comfortable place to bike on, so there might need to be some improvements to deal with that. And then all these little purple areas, these are for the people who asked for street connections, and these are going to freak out the people who said no street connections. So just so you know, we know that, and we propose and you dispose, and so and you guys vote on things. We're not going to vote while we're here. Don't worry, that's much too formal. But as you go through the official process, you get to vote and decide what happens. So, but anyway, it's pretty neat to see. There's a whole lot of connectivity you can get with just a little bit of additional connection. Now, the ones that are probably most freaky to people are these right here. This is where that road that was never built was supposed to go.
Neville Road.
Neville, yeah. So Neville, that's where that went. So it's on the internet. You can see the where it's supposed to go. So we showed it, and then some of these other ones are new ideas. We also were looking at sites that are relatively underutilized. and that means that the property owner is not maximizing the value on them. And so we've kind of highlighted them around the map. And the thing that's interesting, when you're working in a place like this that's kind of built out, I thought it was more so when we first came here and I was looking at the map, and then as we were looking at all the kind of areas that were open and with trees and things, I was looking at the trail network and other things, there's actually a lot of places where you can do things, but the increment of development is much smaller. So it's going to be like a house could go here where there are other houses, or some things. And then up here, there seems to be kind of lots of opportunities. This piece of property is amazing. The one with the ice house on it, it's amazing and beautiful, and could be a really, really cool park if the city bought it, or they donated it, or the college bought it and donated, or I don't know what they do. Everybody's giving them land, so maybe they whatever. But anyway, but it's also a big site that could have some really cool stuff. But whatever happens on it, it needs to be kind of really thoughtfully dealt with. If it's park or if it's development, because it'd be a shame to lose that site to just ho hum. And so let's see. So we'll go on and we can look at more. So as we were starting to think about the input we got from the opening presentation, and people had circled different nodes here, and so we wanted to start to highlight those. And each of these circles is a 5-minute walk. So from the center to the edge is 5 minutes, and that's like I told you in the opening presentation. We know that the average American is willing to walk about 5 minutes. So we're looking at that. What's cool is you can start to see all the houses that start to become able to walk to this really easily. And we started thinking, okay, well, what can we do with these areas? So here's one of the nodes. This is Mass and College, right, guys? Okay, thank you. It's pretty good. Normally I don't remember the street names. So you don't have that many streets. So, so Mass and College. So we're looking, and there's a lot of kind of property that is we don't own, city doesn't own. But when we're looking at places to do interesting things, we have to find some parcels. So this is actually a different angle. It's rotated because we didn't have an aerial photograph. But you start to see, there's very little building kind of in this area along here. This is where the cool clock and the bench is, right? So you're ready. So here we started to take lots and lots of liberties. Not take them away. I have to watch my words with you guys. This is the trickiest crowd ever. All right. So here becomes your oval, since we don't have to actually make an oval to call an oval. This becomes your civic space. What's kind of cool about this is a lot of communities have these where you have kind of the main road so the traffic still circulates, and then they have what we call an offset square or an offset green or something like that, where it's just kind of off the side. So that was one idea. This is kind of the more realistic, the more easily accomplished, even though it's not easy to accomplish. This is more easy than the next one that I'm going to show you. The next one is a bit more aggressive and has some really interesting things going on. So instead of lots and lots of traffic lights, one of the things that you can do to alleviate some of the issues is make the circulation pattern become interrupted. So here, at this point, is your clock. We move the clock from the corner over here into a little plaza. So as you're driving down the road from both directions, there's your clock, terminating your view into the distance. Okay. So and then what we've done is we heard that population has gone down in the school. There's not as many children as there once were. However, with all the potential development and people moving in and all that stuff that people are concerned about, there may be a need at some point to expand. And even if no more people come, there's still a need to expand, because I understand that like the classrooms and some of the facilities are undersized. So even if you're not having any more rooms or seats, the building still needs to be bigger. So what we've shown here is actually an addition to the school that comes on to your new town green. Okay, so you have the building facing out here, and now we've given the kids, instead of just asphalt from edge to edge, there's some proper play space here that's kind of nestled in within the building. And instead of having your bus and carpool lanes spill out onto Mass Road, which I understand that's what happens now. I couldn't believe that. I was like, surely, we thought that they went here and kind of went through. So now you actually can you can come here and drop off and go out, or you could come here and drop off. So the circulation is much more kind of internal, and then the kids, kind of have a nice experience of walking. I guess the entrance is over here somewhere, right? So the kids have a nice experience of walking, or you can go in a different way. But anyway, this is obviously kind of big and bold and kind of out there approach. But if you do this, it's going to be quite a change that would make a big difference to the community. And then you have these great houses that are sitting here right now that are facing out onto parking lots and stuff, and now all of a sudden they're facing onto this great civic space. I don't know who owns those houses, but if it's me, I'm going to be excited. And and if you wanted to sell your house, it would probably be worth more. But anyway, so this is all pretty aggressive and interesting. You don't have to do this. You could even just do a modified version of the last one where you still continue the road on there. But we just wanted to give you guys stuff to just consider. So here's another area. Let's see. This is the gas station here, right? Mm-hmm. And then where is Pam? Can you orient me?
That's the oil.
Okay.
It's Rockland Ave.
Okay, Rockland Ave, and then this is Mast?
Yes.
Here. Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, so this is the Awesome Diner, right?
Cody.
Yep.
Always?
No, Cody's. Cody's, right?
Okay.
And then this is this piece that's...
Okay.
Yep.
Collision.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We just
Pop quiz.
redid his building.
I know, it's good. So what we did was wanted to make something even more special. And so we took this, turned this, cleaned up this intersection, put this nice civic space here, and all of a sudden now when you go eat at the diner, you come out, you can sit here in the park, the collision thing can stay, here's this road comes in. So this is a much smaller, kind of easier intervention, but still, if you're, yeah, Pam.
That other street that now has the cleaner, the down
Here?
next there, that's the one that it cleans up that intersection to help with traffic so that people going into Manchester
Thank you.
better route there.
Yep. So this is cleaned up. So anyway, it seems like a small change. Could have a big impact, but also could, he could hate it. So let's see, where are we here? So this is the Shaw's, right? So here's the Shaw's Shopping Center. Obviously, lots of space here. Now, this is interesting. This is McDonald's, right?
No, Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, sorry, the other red roof. So the Pizza Hut, typically we think, these guys stay around forever, but then we see the dollar store down the road, and I was shocked that Burger King left the blue roof, right? It left. So you left with the red roof. And so we wanted to see about some things here. There's, kind of some opportunities, because then here's the Hannaford's.
Yep.
Hannaford's. Over here, and then you guys have this stuff going on in here, new development, this park that actually a lot of people said they really are excited about, right? So we took this, here it is here in a different orientation, Shaw's, Hannaford's, Abington, Pizza Hut. Okay, so because some people said this could be a node of activity, so this is the Shaw still. Here we made a little block system, so these are actually buildings. We've taken the stream and things that are in here that are just kind of at the edge of the parking lot where there's a huge, kind of storm stuff going on there, and actually made it into an amenity where people are facing onto it. So now it's all of a sudden becoming something, and it helps to connect, as we were talking about, across the street here. So there's the Ice House. Here we showed reconfiguring. I know it's a brand new park, okay? So I know you guys said you liked it, but we just wanted to see. So here, instead of just having these buildings pushed back really far from the street, we started to, again, kind of give them some neighbors, have a streetscape here, having a small defined green, and then this all connects in and starting to look at some infill in the parking lot of Hannaford's. So all of a sudden now the pattern that you have along kind of on both sides of the street is the same. Instead of just having parking lots facing out onto these houses, it's kind of an experience where you'd go all the way up, and you could imagine that then you get up here and this becomes a node, and then here we're starting to show some development on the corner of this parcel. So, and then these streets are tying in and lining up, so that it becomes just a natural progression, a growth of the existing street network.
Excuse me, I got
Yes.
a question here.
Yes.
Where that park is, the brand new park that's in there,
Yeah.
why do we want to put more development in there?
You may not.
Okay, I'm just, you're sticking buildings and all sorts of stuff in there,
Yeah.
but I happen to live right across the street from it.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a hellhole right now.
Even with the park.
Yeah, well, trying to get in and out of the
Oh,
streets and
oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And you're sticking more businesses, more buildings in these parking lots. I mean, why?
So one thing I forgot to say.
I'd put more green space in there as opposed to more businesses or buildings.
Right, and that's a like I said, we're going to show stuff I knew people would have problems with. So I'm surprised you're the first person to say something. So, but so one of the things I didn't say, you just reminded me of, is now you remember that secondary network I was talking about? Now you can actually go from Hannaford's through here,
Yep.
up to Shaw's,
That's nice.
out here, and you're not getting on, off, doing that. That said, this configuration can be, it can be a lot different. It's easy enough to turn this inside out, put the part back. We could do that, that's no problem. And again, nothing may happen here. This was one of these things where we were just avoiding it because it was already a foregone conclusion. It was being built and all, and it's a brand new park. And I said, let's just see, what happens, and kind of thinking about this all together. And so now we've seen, and we hear. So I hear you, and we're noting that. So remember, this is in the end, those are just pictures and drawings. Where this all goes is zoning, right?
Could you show a little? I was curious about the Hannaford part of it.
Yep.
Could you show what you're thinking of there?
Yeah, so this parking lot here with the Hanover's is not all that big, and it's more challenging to make kind of a block system in there. Here we're just showing a few buildings kind of pulled up to the street, some circulation around that, and it could turn. You could put another building here, another building here. There is space to do stuff, but just kind of being more market realistic about one, what these guys may want to do, and two, yeah, you have pressure for new businesses and things that come here, but they're not just beating down the door. So we've there's obviously a lot of development shown here, and it would take the market here a long time to absorb that, and take these guys a long time to get excited about it. Now the thing that's cool about this, as we talked about the zoning, is that we can set this up where the zoning allows this to happen whenever they want it to. They can keep it like they have it as long as they want to as well. So now they have additional options that they can do with their property that they didn't have before. Before, all it could be was a strip center pushed back with a giant parking lot in front. We can start looking at what are more realistic parking standards. Are we requiring too much parking so that they have to do many businesses have to put in more parking because of the city ordinance than they even need, and so then they're wasting their land, and they have to also pave it once they waste it. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. And so we've been studying your existing zoning. So this is your zoning map if you've not looked at this before. And you've got this tan color. All of this is residential 2. And then this little bit up here is residential 1. And then you have this mustardy color, which is RSBO2. And you've got the pink, which is commercial. And the purple is industrial, and those are all the zones you have in here. Things we found that were very interesting. Right now, the river is zoned residential 2, just so you know. So if we end up with an island in the river, somebody's building residential 2 in there. I don't know if you can do houseboats or something, but it's very interesting for it to be zoned residential 2. The entire university is zoned residential 2. And then a campus is allowed by special exception, and every time they want to do something, they have to go ask for some special exception. You have very small differences between residential 1 and residential 2, yet there's 2 zones. The RSBO2 and the commercial are both commercial zones for all intents and purposes. They have some differences. So we're looking for ways to start to simplify things. People have said, this is too complicated. Let's simplify it. Let's expand people's rights and those kind of things. But we also heard people wanted to have the neighborhood protected, because people weren't excited, except I guess people are used to it. You probably can't see, but they're on this little pink square, right in the middle of all this tan, is this commercial lot. I don't know, it's a sports something.
Indoor recreation, Pinardville Athletic Club?
Oh, the athletic club.
Yeah, so there's an athletic club there. So so tell me about it. What is
It's a club. It's
people go in there? And
You have to be a member.
Okay.
It's a membership.
So it's one of those kind of commercial uses that people aren't freaked out by being in the
That's
big
what it is, right? It's a bar.
A bar?
It's a
bar.
bar.
These are like
Yeah.
pull-ups.
By membership
bar.
Wow. Like a speakeasy, right? All right. So anyway, so that was interesting and very unusual because you typically don't find one little lot zoned different than everything around it. In some places, you're not even allowed to do that. So very interesting. And then you have your apartment complex here that's zoned commercial. And let's see, what other interesting Pinardvillisms do we find? So anyway.
You have the recreational fields or something like that.
Oh yeah, your recreation fields are all zoned industrial because they're on the dump, and so that never changed. But, and you don't have anything that's in conservation at all. And then your parks are zoned residential too. The park, sorry, your one park is zoned residential. So all strange and interesting things. So a lot of people have been saying, well, why do we need to do anything? And so now I at least have one thing to say because there's a bunch of weird things here that are going on. Yes?
I got a quick question.
Yes.
What's Pinardville's zoning as compared to downtown Goffstown?
Yeah, downtown Goffstown has
it seems like
village.
we've got a ton of industrial and commercial and all stuff up here, but you go into center of Goffstown and it's all residential. Most of it's residential.
No, they've got the red, which is village commercial. So the village that
Right.
where you that's all this village commercial. But then around it is more residential.
Well,
There
it
is
just
some
seems as the
industrial.
center of Goffstown flushes twice and it lands in Pinardville. We get all the backwash. We get all the backwash in Pinardville, and Goffstown stays nice and pristine.
Where does the backwash go? Are you being like?
I'm
sort
being
of,
facetious.
Facetious. Okay, great.
But it's true.
So
That's true. We get all the
true.
garbage. We get all the
Yeah.
garbage here, and
Yeah.
Goffstown stays the village and all pristine and the white picket fence.
yeah, so you guys get the industrial. Is that what I
Right.
think is the other point?
That's why they're doing that.
And very interesting too, because in the end, because you have the majority of residences and the majority of the commercial, you have the majority of the tax base in this little area here. So it is an interesting scenario that's been laid out. So what we're trying to do is, again, these are all separated by uses. Use.
Get another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could you check Joffrey Street? Just to see what it's zoned for the first two properties. Like there's an auto body shop, I believe, on the
He's
corner.
checking live to look.
And then it seems like R2, is that also like a type of commercial where someone...
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the difference between commercial and R2? What can they do in R2 and what can they do in commercial? That's one question.
Yep.
And could you check our street to see actually what it's zoned for the first two properties? And why is R2s or commercial being stretched into the side streets of Pinardville?
So Brian's going to check right now and find out specifically because I couldn't begin to read the street names on that. The R2 is just residential. That's all it can be.
Two family, right?
Uh,
Like
two
two families, is that what that means?
Man, what happened to word? What's it, two, Brian?
The R2 is
Yeah,
just a second
So
star
small.
residential
Higher
zone. It
density.
has smaller lots
Yeah, smaller lots.
than
So
the residential one.
yeah, so a little smaller lots in residential one, but only residential, not commercial. And the thing that's interesting is in some places along Mass Road, it's one lot deep with commercial, and other places it's 2 or 3 or 4. And then in a couple, only like at the end of one street, it's residential still on Mass Road.
Isn't that RSBO2 essentially a formerly residential form that's been changed into business?
Right.
Right.
So it looks
It's kind
like
of a mixed use. You can do either residential or business or both.
So it might look like a house, but it
Yeah.
can function either way.
Right. So he's looking into your specific on Joffrey.
Isn't that at RSB, that could be like a home business.
Right.
Like a beauty salon perhaps, or if you're running maybe like an appliance store out of your house or something like that.
Yeah, and it depends on what
So
type
it's
of
not,
business.
it's not,
Some certain businesses can't go in that zone, and others can, and those that can't can go in commercial. I think is my understanding. What do you got, Brian? You got it for me?
Okay, yeah.
Here we go. Answer to your Joffrey question.
On Joffrey Street, you have, on the north side of the street, you have 1, 2, 3 lots, it looks like, that are included. Well, there's the auto business right there. John Eckel actually is right there off of, on the other, sort of midway, and then there's a house. Those are zoned commercial. On the other side, there's one lot that's zoned commercial, and right behind all of that is zoned residential too. So you have a couple of lots buffer, of basically commercial zoning, and then it changes to residential too.
Right. So we heard, and probably where you're going with this is, what we heard is that the transition from commercial to residential is sometimes a little bit rough, and some of it's a house that's converted to a business. But if somebody puts in a business, that's a business that's obviously a business, a commercial building next to the residential, it starts to get a bit dicey. That's what we've been hearing. So we've been thinking about that, and as we're working on the zoning, we're going to try to clean that up. So.
just so I understand though, the first lot is auto body shop, and then there's the beauty salon, and then the house next to the beauty salon, I think that's considered 8 Joffrey Street. What is that zone?
8 Joffrey, just type that address.
Commercial. The one behind
I'm
the
not sure if it's business.
you can't go over the town to research on
That is zoned commercial.
Yeah.
And across the street is the car wash. Okay, and then the house next to it, Mr. Larrabee's house, is that commercial too?
Let's see.
You know what we should do is at
Car
the end,
wash. Car
Brian,
wash.
you can set up your computer and we can have a station. People can come up. And I bet you're not the only one with questions like this.
Yep. Car wash is the one on the corner,
Right.
and then behind it, it looks like there's a separate little building there. I don't know if that's a house, but it may be on a separate property. 9 Joffrey Street is Larrabee, is that what you said?
Yes.
His property is owned residential too.
So that's the end.
Okay.
That's the end.
Thank you.
All right, so we took all of this and started to think about it instead of use, separated from the others. Started thinking about character and some of the things we've heard. And so we did a rough version, what we call the regulating plan, which is a zoning map. And so here's what it starts to look like. So taking the existing RSBO2 and the commercial, and realizing and recognizing they're not all that different, and when you start making character-based standards for them, they can be the same. And so that's, you start to be your spine here along Mass. There were 2, I think right here, that we gave this is the 4th zone, the 4th character zone. So we gave them that designation since they were currently just the residential. The residential, that's the gray. It's not residential anymore. I mean, it is. Sorry, I didn't mean to give anybody a heart attack. It's not. It is residential, and it's the 3rd character zone, which is residential. But talking about in terms of character. But for all intents and purposes, it's just protecting what you have. So we've gone out now and measured the setbacks and the lot sizes and all of that kind of stuff. And that's now in the synoptic surveys that I told you guys about. And so the dimensional constraints will be part of that. And we learned that, if you want to add onto the side of your house or put a shed or whatever, you have to go spend $236 and go through this process and ask for permission. And so we're going to, as far as we can fit into the fire code, clean that up so you don't have to jump through all those hoops, and it can be, it's kind of cool because it makes, what we see in New England that we don't see in a lot of other places is this sort of organic evolution, not of necessarily the town or village, but the buildings themselves. So you have like front house, middle house, back house, barn, or whatever. Like we see that in Maine all the time. You can see it some other places too. So it's like this. We put this, and then we added that, and we did this, and when you don't have to do it in some contrived way, it can be really cool, and the buildings themselves are really interesting. Now that said, you probably need to keep in place some of your other standards so that people don't decide, this addition to my house really needs to be a plastic baby pool, and so I'm going to stick that on there, and I can probably put some duct tape, and that'll be for the winter, So you probably need some rules and regulations around that. We've taken the residential zoning off of the water. I don't know if that matters to anybody, but we just thought that you might clean that up. We've taken the industrial designation off of the parks there, the ballparks. We've left it here in this spot. That's where the substation is. So we figured that you probably still want power. So then we made the university what's called a special district. I showed you guys a minute ago. So it has its own kind of set of standards and rules and things. And then we, here for illustrative purposes, just to see what sticks, we showed this piece as, could be a park. Easy enough to change the color. Just wanted to throw it on there. And then these areas here, at the intersections, this one's treated a little bit differently. This is kind of, seeing as the main node, where the civic space would be. We did that as the fifth character zone. And that's basically, the most intense, and so that could be like, instead of between 1 and 2 stories, it could be between 2 and 4 stories. I can't remember how many stories you have in the village, but so that one little area is kind of this. When you come there, this is the center. Not only does it have the civic space, but it's a little bit more intense. These properties have a little bit more kind of added value to them. But
what street are you on when you're talking?
This is Mass Road and College, right here. So that's one of those nodes that we showed the drawings for. And then let's see, what other interesting things? Oh, hey, this is no longer zoned residential. It's now zoned civic. So the park there, that's the park. You didn't know. So that's and looking for other opportunities for actual parks. Most of the time in most cities there would be a park somewhere in the neighborhood, but you guys have houses there already, and so unless if you get together and say let's sell our house and make a park there, you're probably not going to get one, but it'd be a good spot, right in the middle there somewhere. And then part of the planning process, kind of making it easier to get down to the rail trail and start to clean some of that up. Now, that said, this is more of just nearly like a translation with a few small tweaks to your existing zoning, making a character base. But we noticed that here, along this edge, you have this strange situation where the industrial is right across the street from what is zoned residential right now. And we also noticed that you have this piece of the commercial, this triangle, comes way off of Mass Road down. What street is this? College. Thank you. So it comes down College, and so you've got these kind of across from each other. And then as you come down the street here, you'd never know that there's a college at the end of College until there's a college. And so starting to think about this as a way to kind of help highlight that and identify that. And then recognizing that these large parcels that are across from the college, student housing and things, there might be need for the students to live. I don't know where they live right now, but it seems like, kind of.
They own some of those buildings already, the colleges.
They do?
Yes,
Okay.
on both sides of St. Anne's Drive.
Okay, so even some of these houses and things.
Yes.
Okay. So we're thinking that zoning might be changed to allow for something more than just, single-family residential that could be focused on the college students. And this nearly could become like a little node of college activity. Now, people who live here, I don't know how you feel about it. Are the students well behaved there? Are they good?
Ask your
Well, you were just 23 years. I'll give you Catherine verse later.
Do you remember your college days?
I was a good guy.
That's the way I do that.
So anyway, this is the more aggressive version of the regulating plan. And so we looked at bringing this down to kind of connect and sort of make a little bit more intensity here along down the street. These are set up where you can start to have more multifamily and college housing, that kind of stuff. I don't mean crummy dorms. I mean things that fit into the neighborhood and like really cool things. And then here, kind of mediating between. You already had this one commercial zone in the apartment complex. Mediating between the industrial and the residential with other areas that allow residential, kind of a higher scale, kind of more appropriate to face the industrial, kind of stepping you up to the residential side.
Where is the church?
Kingdom Hall is right down from
We need to mark
Right
it.
across the.
Right here?
It's right down from the apartment buildings a little ways.
Oh, here.
You go down, you come to
Yeah.
Kingdom Hall.
Okay, so we got on top of that. Okay.
Really?
And the church is in a residential zoning right now. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this definitely would not prohibit the church, first and foremost. So
What does that do to LeMay's beef that's up there?
LeMay's what?
LeMay's is still in
It's
the
still industrial.
industrial zone.
So
Yeah.
it's considered industrial now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
We just left all the industrial as it was, and so.
In the front of the house.
So anyway, so that's the kind of aggressive approach, and where it ends up, it's for you guys to decide. But so what we then started doing is,
That little, was that black right there in that center where College Road
It's
is, where Pizza Market and that
deep
is, right?
purple. Yes.
Is that, okay, from back here it's
Yeah.
black.
So you should have been up here.
You said 4-story buildings, what happens to the small businesses that are there? I mean,
Yeah, they can.
you're going to put some kind of oval there and you're going to do all this stuff, but what happens to them?
They can stay as they are. One of the versions of the oval had the building next to the school.
Yep.
Was that to the point? The one where I showed the school coming up into the.
Yeah.
Obviously, that building could go away. To do that, they have to decide they want to sell, whatever. So that takes coordination to make that happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And then what typically happens is, so like let's say this piece right here, the small little triangle. They say, okay, wow, I've got all these property rights now to do this. I'm going to build this building. I'm going to stay here, and then I'll have these additional floors I can sell, lease, whatever they want to do. So it just becomes a business thing. Now, the key and most important thing to note is everybody was talking about grandfathering and all these, grandfathering some more. And so the idea is that with these zoning changes, what you have now, you're not going to have to come into compliance with this. It's like, oh, you have this new zoning, now you have to go do all these things. It's like you decide when you want to do it, but typically, as you do now, you have, if you change your building a certain, amount or whatever, then you go into this, into the current zoning. So those kind of rules wouldn't change. This isn't saying you've got to go and do things differently now all of a sudden. And the best part is that, it kind of allows people to decide when to take advantage of the new value that they got in their property.
Question?
Yeah.
So I think if I can rephrase what you just said, is that a change in your building, it isn't an all or nothing, either I'm grandfathered or I'm not. In other words, if I want to do a few things to my building in Pinardville and come closer to the current, the new zoning, that's acceptable?
It really just depends on what your current non-conforming use grandfathering provision says. And it goes on for 2 or 3 pages. And
So we gotta sort
whatever that
through it
rule
first.
is, that's still the rule.
Because I would think that ideally for someone who owns some property, if they want to make some changes that get them closer to the new rules,
Yeah.
that should be acceptable, even if they don't meet them 100%, but as long as they're moving toward them, as opposed to losing your grandfathering the moment you do anything.
Actually, I think I remember something about coming closer to conformity, big language in there, but I didn't really focus on it, but it is.
And I
Okay.
think you have to do like more than 50% in order to have to meet new building codes and all that kind of stuff. So there's
Which is a different issue.
There's different increments that you can do without having to actually, lose your non-conforming status.
So, for instance, I'll give you an example where in Yarmouth, Maine, I talked about with you guys before, there's a place called Binga's Wingas. It's a wing place. And Binga was super excited about this because he needed some more space. He had more parking than he needed, and we're talking about, reducing some of the parking requirements to make it more reasonable. And so what he wanted to do was just take some of his parking spaces out front and build his building out closer to the street and meet the setback requirements, but just adding onto his building. So he's taking away parking, adding to his building, and moving forward. And so that's the kind of thing that we, I hope that the grandfathering allows. Or if you, let's say you've got Hannaford's and you want to, want to build an outbuilding out front. It's going to be up to the street, like the new zoning says, but it doesn't mean that you've got to go pull your whole Hannaford's up to the street. You know what I mean? So those kind of things, it's all about kind of fitting in with what you've got, and the goal of this is to make things easier so people can do stuff. So hopefully we're not going to be hampered and hamstrung by your existing rules. But we saw the what's that up in the village? The convenience store. The thing doesn't fit. Cumberland Farm, right? So, and you guys told me the story of how it was a gas station, and then became a gas station convenience store, then became a convenience store into something, and so they kind of found his way around it, and now all of a sudden, like I said, it's the one thing that doesn't fit up there, and it certainly didn't add to the village, the character, the value of their own property or anyone else's. They would have done way better had they kind of been in keeping with the rest of the village. However, because it's the only game in town up there, they probably don't do too bad. So.
There are 3 different components to your non-conforming ordinance, and it's basically use or lot or structure, and they're each tested separately. So like if you change your use, if you have to start conforming with whatever new use is there, but if you change your structure, you have to do something. Each one of them is done as a separate item.
And typically what we focus on is, again, kind of expanding the uses, because if the form is right, then the use, and so long within certain parameters, doesn't really matter all that much. But we tend to find that to be those parameters, like you're talking about, are sort of ambient things, loud noise or bright lights or smell or whatever, things that you can't put up a privacy fence to cover. So anyway, this all, is kind of the technical side of things, and these are really actually good and insightful questions you guys are asking, because normally when we talk about these kind of things, zoning and stuff, people just glaze over and like, okay, next slide, please. So as we go through this process with all you guys, keep it up, keep asking us this stuff. And so the last thing we wanted to do was, part of this process is to come up with a set of guiding principles that are used to as future decisions are made, as people are deciding what we are and aren't going to allow, those kind of things, these principles are what you test them against. And so here's what we came up with. This is based on your input. Again, not everyone said the same thing. So we put some of this up. So protect existing neighborhoods. Nobody probably argues with that. Practice fiscal responsibility. So some of these are going to have paragraphs that go along with them. So here we said, being accountable to our community means managing our fiscal resources wisely. This core value is expressed in many ways, including encouraging sustainable growth. Oh, there's a sustainable word, sorry. And efficient provisions of services and programs, and fully accounting for costs associated with public decisions. Because we heard a lot of people saying, let's quit wasting money on things, let's quit having to pay so much in taxes, let's, all of those kind of things. So that's embedded within that. But then other people said we also want to be sustainable and we want to think about these things. So we thought that it would be really nice to bring you all together in one provision, in one principle. So let's see, enhance healthy lifestyles, families and communities. Looking, a lot of people talked about that. Enhancing unique identity of Pinardville. That was a unanimous thing, I think. Provide more civic spaces, become more self-sufficient, increase connectivity. Sorry, I know some of you don't like that. Provide additional transportation options, increase tax base, minimize traffic problems, and increase community involvement. Because one thing I have seen is that it seems like, I could be wrong, but most people are enjoying this kind of a thing where they can come and give input at the very beginning instead of having to wait until it's the public hearings and then come fighting and saying, I hate this and don't do it to me. So more of this kind of stuff, this open dialogue, I think will be a good thing for your community. So anyway, staying involved, again, the Facebook page, keep it up. We've been posting a bunch of stuff on there. Pictures and the plans will be going up, and people are making great comments and things up there. And that's facebook.com/PlanPinardville. We are here. We're making our way through. This is the public pinup. Tomorrow is just a work day, production day, but as today was pretty much, anybody, a bunch of people came in, hung out, chatted with us, and so you're welcome to keep doing that. And then Tuesday night, Tuesday evening at 5:30. Never read that across there. 5:30, the closing presentation. Back around the corner. Mm-hmm. Yep, around the corner.
This way.
Well, you have to go out and go around.
No.
Let's look third around.
Get your compass up.
Yeah. So anyway, at the church, where we started, back to where it all began. So let's chat.
Hey Brian,
Yeah.
can we get some feedback on regarding
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do this. This is what we call our TPUC shout out method. You guys are gonna. I know some of you have been waiting to shout, so you've been being very nice. So let's shout it out. All right. So who's for protecting existing neighborhoods? Yeah. You guys say yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Louder than okay. Great. Practicing fiscal responsibility.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh yeah.
Like who's
Even
being
with
paid for all these
even
things?
with sustainable development as part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you can take the sustainable.
Yes.
I think on number 2,
Start with the having the monies.
yeah, one of the things that was at Saturday morning was something along the lines of minimizing as close to zero as possible taxpayer expense to get all this done. I don't know the best way to say that other than the way I said it, and it's not in the lengthy paragraph there. Something along those lines
Okay.
would be good. Fully accounting for costs associated with public decisions. That sounds like legalese for maybe what I said. If people want to read that it's not going to cost them more money for their property tax.
Who wrote that thing anyway? I did not write it. The lawyer in the room did not write
Blame it on
it.
yourself.
That's pretty good. So
I hadn't seen it.
Laura, Karen just write down what you just said. So she's writing these things down in the back. So so we'll make sure we start to embed that. Yeah.
Why don't you give your definition of sustainable?
All right. Thanks. I appreciate that. What does it mean to me? Do you guys care what it means to me?
What do you mean in context of what
Oh,
you're
okay,
saying
good.
there?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then we can find another word for it.
Okay.
Which I'm sure we will.
So sustainable growth and development. So what we're talking about here is not being wasteful. As we do develop things. So it can, when you start tying into environmental sustainability, then that's talking about allowing for these natural stormwater infiltration and those kind of things that literally in some communities we work in, you can't deal with your stormwater except for putting it in big expensive pipes. So if the individual lot is dealing with its own stormwater, then it lessens the burden on having the municipal storm sewers and stuff have to take care of that. So that's environmental and economic sustainability tied together. Is this going to take too long? What do you want it to mean? What does it mean to you guys? I guess is really what's important.
Sustainable to me has something to do. First off, I think I mentioned to you before in an interview sustaining private property rights.
Yeah.
But I think what it means more so is that removing or minimizing barriers so that any momentum or inertia that develops from a form-based code can continue. In other words, you're just removing barriers to people doing things with their property. Because whenever you use this sustaining growth and development, people get very afraid. But if you say, I want to remove barriers for you in the residential, for you in the commercial, you in the industrial, you in the special college, to do what you need to do with your property, I think that's what I like anyway about what this creates. This creates opportunity. And
Well,
that's sustainability to me because it helps provide momentum for people to do what they need to do with their property.
Two things that I actually didn't put on here. One of them I know I wrote down and I didn't type it in was protect existing property rights was one of them. Probably good there. Hey, shout it out.
Yeah.
They already shouted it out now. And then the other was removing barriers. So barriers to market-driven development, those kind of things. So
I like the words least restrictive land uses, so that so that property owner has minimal, as you said. Visually, the neighbor can, block out something, but if you're talking about smell, or if you're talking about sound, or you're talking about bright lights, right. So you want the least restrictive. You have some zoning or some planning that has to go in, but let the property owners, so that the businesses want to come in. Right. Least restrictive.
But you got to be cautious on the whole thing too, because there's a difference between someone putting a shed on their property and then somebody like Hannaford deciding they're going to put a 2-story building, another business that's going to add traffic onto Mass Road and to an already congested area. So there's got to be some kind of caution, some kind of buffer in there someplace. Because you're comparing apples and oranges. When you do this sustainable thing, then it's opening the floodgates to people saying, well, I can do what I want now, and to the detriment of the overall picture.
Right.
You've got to be careful about that overall picture, because you can say it's my property, I want to do what I want, but in large part that's true. But we also have to be careful of our neighbors, because we're not always good neighbors, and our neighbors are not always good neighbors. We have to be careful that what we're doing is not going to not only affect our neighbors, but affect the roads, the drainage, and things that are going to cost the taxpayers money. So what I'm going to do to my property, it wouldn't be reasonable if, say, I had a lot of drainage on my property, and I just let it run into the street and damage the street, and then the town has to pay for it to be redone.
Right.
Or if I were going to tear up paving that was done, and I wasn't going to do something to remedy it myself. It's my responsibility to do that. It's not the town. It's not something that should be placed onto the town.
I want to second what you're saying. Respect for your neighbors, that's very important.
It is, but it's not
just because
always
if I
there.
have a ticket to build a 5-story building, what about the guy in back of me? You're going to be blocking his sight. So I'm hoping that before anything gets changed for a particular building, that your neighbor is going to be notified, and they have a right too, because you're not going to have respect from him if you have a ticket to do anything you want to do. That's not right.
Which is the practice that we already currently
Yeah,
have.
abutters are always notified.
Right.
We have that.
Which is tricky. They don't do that everywhere, actually. I'd never even heard about the butters until I came to New England. So actually, I heard about it first in Indiana, so it's not quite.
Because you today, well, currently the zoning, when I built my apartment above my parents' home, I had to go to a variance, and all the abutters had to be notified to come up, because I was putting a second floor on an existing piece of property, and they had a right to say, no, I don't want that, and I couldn't have put that. I mean, I don't see that we would ever not have that part of the zoning, but just being a little bit more cautious about, I want to put on a porch on the back of my house, and maybe I don't have enough property, and now I have to go to a variance, and everybody's got to be notified. To be honest with you, if you want to put a porch on the back of your house, I don't really care.
But a second floor, you do.
I might want to do that. To me, it wouldn't matter around my neighborhood. I'm the biggest house on the street.
Right. I'm just
But
saying.
if they were going to put 5 stories on in the back of my house or side by my house, that I might care about.
What if they were 1 story, you were 2 stories, and they added a story, and so they're just the same as you? Do you
To
have to ask
me,
the
that
butters for
wouldn't
that?
bother me.
Is that? But do you currently have to ask the butters?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what
Everything
happened
you
to
have
me.
to, abutters get notified, so they can, doesn't necessarily, they can come out at least say, I think this is going to affect me in this way.
So
And they
give
can
you
be
a
negative or
chance.
positive about it.
Yeah, they can give
Even if the zoning
feedback.
allows
Even if the zoning already allows it, it's just if you propose something on your lot, the
Right.
butters get to talk about
No,
it.
Not everything.
If there's an accessory dwelling unit that's proposed for a house that's attached to that house, automatically anyone has to always go for special exception. But I think it's a
So
little.
it's for the special exception. then?
I think it's a little ridiculous to have to ask every single time for that,
Yeah.
especially, if it's within a neighborhood that, looks and feels like it's got, a fairly dense thing, and if you put another unit within your house, I mean, nobody's probably ever gonna care, and so, those types of things, I think, could be relaxed.
Let me give you an
Things
example.
that,
Let me tell you one, I'm sorry, Brian.
I was just gonna add, back to the term of sustainable growth and sustainable development. For me, I look at the word sustainable as an issue of time.
Yeah.
If you look at the root of that, it's sustained. So how long can it be sustained? How long can your community be sustained as a livable, good, place where everybody can be businesses, residents, anybody that's here can be over time. So, if your neighbor is doing something negative next to you that is going to hurt your property values, that's going to possibly send you packing to some other town, and you have to, set up your business somewhere else or your home somewhere else because it's not sustainable for you then anymore. You've lost your sustainability by the negative impacts that your neighbor has done. So it's kind of a give and take. You have to think about all these things when you're going through this exercise.
There's a generational aspect to it too. It's like you guys are here now, and you wouldn't be here if the previous generations hadn't done something to enable it to be here. And so it's that to me, that's what sustainability is about. You don't go out and just wreak havoc over the town just because you're here now. You don't get that right. You owe it to your children not to do it.
Right. We want to make sure that the future generations don't have our mess to clean up.
Right. Yeah.
Can I give you an example? This is Milford Oval. It's sustainable. It gets multiple uses. It's a band show. It's the Center Park when they have close down the oval and have an event. Everybody goes through that town and enjoys the site there. This street is not sustainable.
Yeah.
A sustainable street would be multi-use, walking, driving, biking. So it's more inclusive. It's allowing more people to make more use of what we have as resources. So and what you're presenting is a way to be more inclusive, to say, let's make our parks parks.
Someone with a computer needs to use their thesaurus and find a synonym for sustainable.
The problem,
Yeah, use a different.
any official document, it is so subjective, as we just heard here.
It
that
has a definition. It does have a
needs to be
definition.
more, forget the sustainable word, be more specific, and what do you mean by that? when
No,
you
it
put that
actually does have
document?
a pretty hard name.
And
It's a very.
it's still used, to me, I've seen it used to support a lot of different things.
The definition that I learned, and I went through planning school for at least 4 years, between 4 and 6 years. It was kind of half architecture and half planning, but the definition that I really came out with as what sustainable development is something that you're basically providing for your needs now, while also providing for the needs of your future generations to meet their needs.
Yeah, without taking
The
away
ability
from theirs.
for, you don't take away the ability for them to meet their needs.
And say that.
Really difficult.
That's it.
Say
But that's
that.
what
Whether
it's-
it's sustainable, say that.
That was really,
I knew that.
actually read the definition a couple days ago, very, very close to what it said.
Yeah, we don't have to use buzzwords and
Because that is a
jargon.
buzzword, and it
Yeah.
can be, it is
No,
subjective,
and
and a lot of
we-
different groups will see not agree with you on it.
Yeah.
We could roll that right into
I used that word when I first applied for the grant. We don't have to use the word.
No, I'm just saying,
it's
it
literally
is
just a
somewhat
word.
subjective, but it
When
does.
when I learned some of the concerns here in the community, and then we were preparing for this, and I pulled it out, and it said sustainable community plan or whatever. I said, oh, great, thanks a lot, Brian.
Walkability.
Dig me a hole before
bikeability.
you get here. Dig out of it, half the room.
I
So.
wanted to, one thing just off that subject, but back to your subject, and just generally, just to give you guys an idea of kind of how this new zoning ordinance might work, something that might be helpful in it. right now you heard Brian say that if you ask for an accessory dwelling unit, you have to get a special exception to do it. The new zoning ordinance, or the part that would impact Pinardville, and the way we're doing it would not impact the other part, the village, yeah. But it would allow, by right, you to have the accessory dwelling unit.
So long as it fit in the form standards that are set
yeah,
up, the character standards.
And so, who cares what's going on in your house? You know?
I'll tell you, it would have been a lot easier for me
Yeah.
back then. And it's not like when I built mine, there was 4 other right around me that were apartment buildings, 2 stories that were older homes that had apartments above them. So it wasn't like I was putting it in where it was all single-story buildings, and trying to take up this big space, although it does look like
Some
But
of
you
the
didn't get
newer-
objections, though, did anybody really? I don't think anybody. that
No,
recall heard
I
anybody
was
She's had to go
lucky.
through the
My
hassle, didn't
neighbors came to support me and told the board that, yes, we feel that she should be able to do it, and there was no problem. And I got it right then and there. But you still had to come up with all the information of what I was going to do.
Oh, like a plan and stuff?
Yeah, I had to have a plan, which cost all this extra money in order to prove. This was 12 years ago, by the way. I don't think you were here, so. We did it because that's what we wanted to, but it would be a lot nicer for families who want to do that. I built mine because I was there to help my parents.
That's what most
stuck in the
people come
two-story.
in asking. They say, I've got my daughter or I've got my parents who are old and need some place to live. They don't need the huge house that they had, so they want to come. Or they're too old to take care of themselves, and so I need to take care of them. And I need to build this accessory dwelling unit. And I have to tell them, I'm sorry, but you have to go to the zoning board of adjustment first. And that's like, really? And it's this, to me, I think those types of things in some area of town should just be able to be allowed. I mean,
It ought to be allowed.
Because
over there too.
you not only have to pay for
Yeah.
that zoning board and getting all that information, but I had to have a contractor had to come. I had to pay for him to come. I had to have all these special. He had to look for all these things. I forget with everything that he did, but I had all this paperwork, and luckily I didn't have to use any of it. But I had to have that all in to prove what I wanted to do, and
What I
it's very
said,
cumbersome.
don't take what I said to say that you wouldn't have to have a building permit to do. That's a different issue. This is just
No, that had nothing to do with the building permit.
Yeah, no,
that
I'm
was
just
before
saying
you
you still
could
have
even
to
get
get a
it.
building permit.
Yeah.
That was before you even had permission to build.
Yes.
So if abutters come and say, I know that they're following the zoning, however, I don't like it, and I think it's a terrible idea, does the planning board say?
They can turn you down.
They take it into account.
they
It doesn't mean they'll
sometimes?
turn you down,
But they can. If everybody around me that was abutted my property said, no, we don't want to have that, I don't think I would have that building
And so
today.
you just wait for the neighbors to move out, or I see. Here's the headlines. New England community has a controversy where one neighbor runs the other neighbor off so they can build their accessory dwelling unit. They started a garage rock band and they ran them and they moved. Like you ever run your abutters off? Is that Seems like
that's a great
I
idea.
have. My father has.
It does
That
have.
happened right down the street with a new house that was built.
So there's
And
one
there's a
more
man that
reason.
has a perpetual yard sale that built that new house and forced them to sell it and they left.
So that's another reason to just say if the zoning says so, then it's the rule. Let's do it. Okay, so what else we have here? Healthy lifestyles, families, communities. Yes.
Just a comment on sustainability. It seems to me that sustainability is based primarily on municipal services and the ability of municipal services to handle that additional growth that you might realize from your changes in zoning. So what I'm saying is if you were to max out what you're proposing for zoning at 100%, increasing businesses, increasing the number of units, residential or commercial, whatever it is, if the existing municipal services can handle that, that's sewer, water, drainage, police, fire department, the school system, then I consider that sustainable.
Yeah.
There's certainly an aspect to it.
And also too, if new development comes, then it can pay for itself. I understand your fire truck. We could zone for 9-story buildings. and they can handle that. At least with a truck, they wouldn't have to buy a new truck.
I don't think the fire department would like that, though, as he said the other day.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out.
And there were people who said they didn't need that truck. I'm just saying.
Do we have any businesses that want to come to Pinardville that are big businesses? Is this what this is all about also?
I don't know. I know that a lot of people say we want new growth that happens here to be in the form of businesses, not as much residential, because it's burdening the schools and those kind of things. Huh?
Is this industrial, residential?
Yeah. So it all comes together typically. So.
Sometimes it's kind of like the thing in Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
So if you do something nice to make your community, have this appeal to it, then businesses, people, they will come.
And at that point, you don't have to worry so much about the small group of people bearing the tax burden of it. That's the biggest part. If you've got such a big part of your town in residences, unless you've got high property taxes, it just doesn't really work that way. You end up needing to have businesses to help support it.
And if you don't have the kind of character that the employees of the businesses are looking for, then what you get is industrial. That's what we see a lot of times in places that are, where people don't really go for the scenic value. You get more and more and more and more industrial, because that's what they've got. They've got land. That's the thing they can sell. In places that have this character, we've got the Oval, we've got this and the other. You say we've got this beautiful place here that people want to be, and customers will come here, and then the store or whatever happens to come. So, yeah.
Well, the other problem is that we're so blah here as far as what our town looks like.
I didn't say that.
You
You live here, so you can say that.
I can say that because I know people that come into. I work in Andover, Massachusetts, and I have some of my colleagues come and pick me up, and they're like, "Where is your town?" When they drive through, they literally drive through it because there really is anything to make them look and see. It's all gray. It's brick buildings. There's nothing to attract people from other towns to come here other than the businesses, and even at that, as we can see with the empty business buildings, people aren't coming from other towns because nobody really knows that Pinardville exists.
Because technically we're Goffstown.
Yeah, because it doesn't.
But when people come through and they're thinking they're going to Goffstown, where do they go? They hit the center of town before they realize that they've been anywhere.
Well, I tell you what, if you do what we drew, they'll know.
That's the whole purpose for
Right,
this.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is not only to say that we can bring in more commercial or anything like that, but we need to beautify this town instead of regular bricks and windows and make it more attractive for people to stay here.
I have an idea. If Pinardville is going to get more commercial property, they should get a break on taxes. If we're handling the brunt of all the commercial compared to the people that live in town, well, maybe if you live in Pinardville, you should get like a discount for that. Like that.
Dream on.
All right, so enhance the unique character, identity of Pinardville. Shout it out.
Yes, depends what it is.
Provide more civic spaces.
Yes.
Okay. Become more self-sufficient.
What do you mean by that?
Separate us from
What does that mean?
Yeah.
We're already
I don't know. What does it mean to you?
No, you're saying it. What do you
It's
mean?
not-
You're the
why
one
is it
who's
there?
voting, so what do you mean by
All
that?
right, so
Self-sufficient, so we don't have to be going, we don't have to go over way across town, go to the mall, or go into Merrimack, go into Hooksett. We should be able to stay right here and have everything here for our children and our teenagers and our seniors from 9 months old to 99 years old without having to go and drive to Merrimack or through Goffstown Village or Hooksett or.
But unless you're a
other
major city,
surrounding
that's not
places.
going to happen. Unless
Say
you're a
again?
major city.
We're kind of
Unless you're a
small to
major
have
city,
all
you can't have it.
Yeah, I understand, but we live in such an environment where education and the youth, the people that are coming up and coming, they're so creative and wanting to have this character and identity. They want to belong to a smaller community
that not everybody wants to run off to the city or run off to
No,
the
I'm not
mall.
saying they do, but you're saying to have, don't
So-
go
To
there
have
for this or
little,
that.
like, we
don't
could
have,
have-
we can't,
That's why we said
becoming a
more-
city, we can't have all those
That's why we
stores.
said
We can't have
more
It
self-
can't
all
be
that.
completely for sure.
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, it's
or
not-
even on a microscopic scale, the ability to be able to grow more of your own food. I don't know if there are impediments here to those kind of things. I know some of you have lots that are large enough to sustain large gardens, but some of you don't. So maybe that means then you find spaces for community gardens where, you know.
We have
that's-
one.
By the prison.
But it's in Goffstown.
By the prison.
It's over the border. Where's Goffstown? No, but it's over the border. It's by the prison. That whole
So
thing there.
there's no Pinardville community garden.
No.
Well, no, but
Okay, so or you know, I mean, I like the idea of you know, kind of depending more on your own community than having to depend on others. And or it can, on a macro scale, you know, we talked about decreasing our dependence on foreign oil by making where we're not using as much of it. You know, so those kind of things. So I mean, it has all kinds of ramifications.
Today
buy
I
that?
know.
What?
I don't like where you're going.
Okay.
I know today that I have friends and people that live here in Pinardville who, to go to a park, they actually go out to Hooksett because their one on DW Highway is so nice and has everything for them. And there's nothing here in Pinardville really for them to do. For those kids. Well, I'm not saying that, but a nice bigger park would be nice for those kids. We have nothing here in town for
But we
those
need the
children.
businesses to get the town space first, because we don't have, you know.
We don't have a chamber of commerce, we don't have.
You got to do what you can afford when you can afford it. Is kind of the idea. So here we lay out the groundwork.
That's why I wanted less restrictions, so more businesses will come, so that there's not that tax burden, and then you can have all these wonderful things. But right now, we're broke.
Part of that self-sufficient thing, I also would say is, you know, buying local. Any kind of, you know, business that does exist here, let's try to support them. You know, the ones that are here. I mean, we got for this project, we got local spaces to use. We got local businesses to help feed us as a team to, you know, to get this project done. You know, getting local businesses the support they need and the money that they need coming through the door from us going in there and using them versus going to another community like a big box store like a Walmart or something. You know,
well, I can attest to being a walker only for a year that I do that.
That's good. And actually,
I
that's
try
a
to shop
great
as much as
example,
possible.
because that doesn't normally happen.
Yes.
You know, and one thing that we're having to do, we're having to go stay in Manchester every night. We have to go drive across the border to our hotel.
there are no hotels
We
there.
couldn't find a place to stay here.
Not even a bed and breakfast here in town.
Nothing.
But that's a great example though. And just so you know,
Down by the prison.
just so you know, guys, being self-sufficient and doing all this local stuff is something that the employees want of these businesses.
Well, that's all county property, and if they don't want to give it up, we're more general. We should work at it and try to get it.
Are you saying things we need to write down?
Yeah.
We need to write some of this stuff down?
There's plenty of. I think we should put a hotel over by the state prison.
Yep. Yeah, there they go.
Well,
when the women's prison
They
moves
can
out,
use
you can
the
leave
prison
while
as
you're
well.
working.
Those buildings right there.
It's huge. What else would make more money?
It'd be cheap for, you know,
I think it already is a hotel, isn't it?
That is, and it's
But it's a
got
permanent
full
hotel.
lettering on your invitation though.
They call it the razor wire inn. All inclusive. I've never seen so much razor wire. You got triple layers. You guys are so safe for all of the women who are going to break out and come.
You never know. Remember
They made the old Charles Street Jail in Boston a hotel.
Did they?
Yeah, it's a thteen.
After the
Well,
prison broke.
there's a restaurant in the one in
But
Concord.
it's a really
Yes,
good
that's right.
That's
Yeah.
right. The one in
There's a
Concord.
restaurant in one of the
Yeah, I
jails,
was
the old
going to say,
jails
in
in
Franklin,
Concord.
where I live, the old prison was, the old jail was in prison. Jail is a restaurant. So cool. They have to still have cells and stuff
You live in
there.
Franklin's?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, I know somebody who lives in Franklin's.
So
Everywhere we go, somebody knows my
You know
that
Patsy?
probably
You
with
know
the
Patsy?
county, though.
Patsy Cline?
No. Patsy, what's her last
I
name?
don't know anybody named Patsy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Let's see. So, hotel, yeah. So anyway, yeah, and just so you know, last night I had the best pot roast of my entire life, thanks to Gail, right? So we had mashed potatoes. It was awesome, as local as you can get. So carrot cake too. It was really good. But the pie roast was the best. I don't normally like pie roast even. So go local, and that's self-sufficient. That was a great example.
And to mention, like at Goffstown High School, my daughter's a senior this year, and one of my colleagues at work, my daughter's part of the Habitat for Humanity group, and they went to Clearwater, Florida to help build, and my colleague said, why can't the high school, if we're going to have projects like that, do it right in their own community?
Yeah.
Hasn't
And we
there
don't
people
have
that
that.
lost,
Yeah, they
lost
have to
houses
work
by the
on it.
river though, not too long ago,
That's
right? Have they rebuilt?
Yeah. Most of us have houses.
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Let's see. Increased connectivity. Let's shout it out.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Depends upon where.
Yeah.
If it's with the businesses, so the traffic is taken off from that road,
Yep.
I'm all for it.
Residential?
Residential, I'm iffy on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The traffic on Mass Road is not only because of the businesses. The traffic on Mass Road is because all the ribs have to pour onto the spine. That's what's causing.
And trying to get off those ribs
of
onto
you
the
who are
spine.
in on the streets are the traffic, in addition to those who are passing by here on the way to somewhere else, not stopping necessarily as much as you want them to. So.
And when I left here Friday night,
Yeah.
I happened, Friday night? No, it was Saturday night. One of the days. I happened to pull into McDonald's, grab something to eat, which I know is not a very good thing. But anyway, trying to get back on the street, it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Trying to get back onto Mass Road to take a left to get to my house, which is 2 streets away, which I probably should have walked, but it was a good 10 minutes because if you don't catch those lights just right, you sit because they're coming this way and then they stop and they're coming this way and
Yep.
Well, that's because whoever
And that was a-
programs
it was
the
a
lights
Saturday.
are the ones that are
That was a
screwing it up.
Saturday.
It's not the lights.
that wasn't
problem.
even, rush hour.
There's a lot of
But a
traffic
lot
on
of
Mass
people
Road
just
now
don't
as
do
well.
it because the traffic is going so
No, it's
slow.
roundabout.
It's like,
And
come on
don't
down,
even
sit
go
here,
there in
everybody
this
runs
town.
both of them.
Because we're in Goffstown.
They're nice.
Don't go there.
So one reason why people don't walk is because you don't have walkable streets. Sidewalks don't mean walkable, just so you know.
And
And
the
so
thing is we have people who I was counting the amount of people who were on bicycles and walking as I was coming here. People walk.
there are some. We saw one guy taking his life into his hands. And he was riding with his bike, and we were following behind and taking pictures of him. We were waiting for
Oh,
the
the
worst,
little old man that rides from the
death-defying
center of
moment.
Goffstown down to Park,
Yes.
Pinardville, every day. The one where he defies gravity because he goes so slow, you don't know how to pick it up.
Did you say
Right?
Did you say
It is
wheelchair?
wonderful. We
No, this is
don't.
on a regular bicycle.
Oh, I saw somebody in a wheelchair riding
Yeah.
down the
Yeah,
street.
yeah. And they're still alive. They've been doing that for ages and they're still alive.
There's a guy here in town that's in one of those bicycles that he's actually kneeling and
Yeah.
pedaling with his hand. Do you know how dangerous that is? Because if you don't really catch him at the right height, some of us who are losing their sight with bifocals,
Yeah.
sometimes they're not. You could actually hurt that poor man.
Yeah, actually, one reason why it's not, I guess more cyclists aren't injured here is because of the traffic. Everybody's going so slow anyway. Even if they hit them, they just put their foot down and
There you go.
they carry on. So it's
We're tough on it.
so once we solve your traffic problem, then your cyclists and pedestrians
Then
are
we're
going
gonna
to
have
be
more
at great
deaths, so
risk.
that's really good.
I think
That's
that's
much better than
If you don't have the right provisions and you don't have walkable and bikeable streets and you don't have traffic, then you will have more problems.
The sidewalk that they built from here to Danish Park, for instance, has increased the foot traffic a lot.
Yeah, because we at one time had nothing. You had one side
Right, it's-
of the
yeah.
road that had small.
And then the winter time, it's nasty.
Yeah. When you have like plowed up
Yeah,
snow
but that,
and
even
stuff.
if they're not plowed, you can't walk them. So I mean,
And there's
you're
that's
walking
funny
in a
things plowing.
street because the sidewalk isn't done,
Yeah.
or you got part of the sidewalk done, and then you got someone that's plowing your driveway or snow blowing, and they put it right in the sidewalk. So then you can't walk it anyways.
Not to mention
So-
it's freezing cold outside.
Exactly. So either way, you end up walking in the street for something.
It was dangerous this winter.
It was.
So this is a
I
great
see.
segue right into the next one called provide additional transportation options.
Like what?
Like
Airplanes.
things besides cars. Yeah, we're not talking about an airport. We're
You
talking
talking about
about
buses?
people being. I don't know. You need buses.
We don't.
We don't have any.
We have
Yes,
one that
we're
comes up
talking
as
about
far as
tractors
straws.
and. Did you guys,
Oh, come on.
Hey, I can help
That
with
was a little
that.
bit of a.
I
Got
got
one
to
in my
drive one.
backyard.
Did you guys see the picture on Facebook
Yes.
of me out driving the tractor?
Done.
So that was fun.
John Deere?
No, we're talking about.
We only put John Bird up. His picture's on there.
I didn't make the Facebook page.
Oh, you bought it
So,
from that?
yeah, I drove it by
Oh
myself.
man, I'm glad I wasn't around when that.
I'd never
happened.
done it. Who has the Jetta that I almost ran into? I was
Where
like,
did they let him
we have a
have
picture
the
of stuff.
Oh my goodness.
So it was fun. So we mean alternate modes of
Yeah.
transportation are talking about shoes. We're talking about bikes. We're talking about whatever you need. But
Well, in the
not
winter,
just
bikes are
cars.
not really all that practical around here.
Bike what?
Bikes are not practical around here.
No shoes.
No shoes.
And shoes, I mean, we do. There's a lot of
Cross country
walkers.
ski down there.
People do that in some towns.
Segway.
Okay, so can we shout out? Do we like just driving, or do we want other ways to get around?
Definitely.
Other ways to
Other
get
ways.
around.
I don't know if that's necessarily.
It's not even a problem.
No, it's
I
not.
don't think that
We
even
walk every
It
day.
is
More
for
crosswalks
elderly,
than
though.
have.
Yeah,
It is for your elderly.
Yeah, but he's talking about walking and biking, which they're not going to do.
No, but I mean, I'm thinking also of the transportation. The elderly, there isn't all that many services for them to leave if they can't walk down to Hannaford's there 4 or 5 streets. I had an aunt that lived in my house. We're only 3 or 4 streets away, but with her asthma and her condition, she couldn't walk down to Hannaford's to pick up the bus. So she basically was stuck at home unless one of us drove her.
I know, but nothing he's suggesting would help him.
No, that's the MBTA, so that's Manchester buses.
Right, but they're saying provide additional
A
transportation.
goal could be to enhance the service that's there. I mean, right now they come to Hannaford's and Shaw's, right? The buses
right.
do.
Right.
And
So-
St. A, 2 places near St. A, there's a food truck and they come on College Road. They have
They
some
service the
stops
college.
Well,
around
they do.
here.
They have
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
just
yeah.
to
Yes.
So they can stop at each of your nodes.
Well, I mean, but yeah,
Right.
Well, you gotta
if you
convince them to
enhance
do it, they
that
don't want
service,
You gotta make it
provide
known
more
first.
stops.
Would be a lot better. If she would have only had
Yeah.
to walk down the street,
Yeah.
that would have been different. But going that extra, she just couldn't with her breathing.
Sure.
So
All
that's
right.
one thing you could do as part of a additional transportation option is enhance the existing bus service that comes through here. I mean,
How about anybody in favor of increasing the tax base?
No.
Yes.
Increasing the tax base.
Not tax base.
The tax base.
With business, more business.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Business.
I took that totally wrong. Sorry.
I've never heard it.
Non-residential.
Right. Minimize traffic problems?
Please.
Like
Yes.
that? That seems to be a common theme.
Synchronizing the lights would be.
Yeah,
If they
we
just
heard.
did the lights,
Yeah.
it'd be a big issue.
It makes a big difference when they do that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And increase community involvement.
I think that's good, but I think it needs to be like we had here. If there's something going into Pinardville, the Pinardville residents should have their own meeting and not include it into Goffstown, because unfortunately a lot of the people in Pinardville won't go because they know they're going to get overrun by the Goffstown residents.
Just so you know, other people worry about it. Anyone could come, but
Right.
but when you have it here in your community, it's
Right,
like more
it would
likely
be
to-
better to be done here and invite them, but they may not come, but that's
And
fine.
do we need professional planners from Tennessee?
I ain't going there. I know into.
No, one thing you do.
Clearly need them.
You're clearly the lawyer word, you know that.
We needed somebody.
Legally.
And we actually, I think we chose the best firm available out of the people that applied for this project to do it. And I mean, you can ask Richard too, he was on our selection committee, but, we had several people that were, from more local, not necessarily from Goffstown or whatever, but from this area that applied, they blew it out of the water, really, as far as quality and the ability to come up with these ideas and
I
plans.
have one thing I was going to ask. Do you guys have like a Pinardville neighborhood association?
No.
Well, there's the businesses, King's Bowling Lane has put together.
Yeah, there is a business one, but it's not a.
You think so much of yourself as a separate entity.
Yeah.
that
Try
you
not
really
to. We have
ought
no
to sort of
choice.
do
Yes,
that.
yeah.
They treat us as
The
separate.
village
They
doesn't
have since
like
I've
us.
lived here in the 70s.
Yeah, it's not that we
Yeah.
choose to be separate,
So,
it's because
can you
Goffstown is
organize
saying-
How you want to?
All we're saying is our
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think that
Can
would
you
be
get
nice,
organized?
is that us all have,
We already
have
have
a
it pretty
voice.
much.
I don't
Just need
think,
to increase the involvement in the organization we already have.
yeah, but that
Notifications
organization
of things,
only for
because we
commercial.
don't always get notified, you know?
That's it. We need a Facebook page like for Pinardville for that organization.
You can just take over the Plan Pinardville page.
To Goffstown first.
It's the one that am I incorporating it with their school. The one thing we have to remember,
Yeah.
because there's more people here.
The
one thing we have to remember about increasing community involvement is that anything that requires a vote is going to involve the entire town,
Yeah.
not just Pinardville.
Yeah.
The other thing.
So when we increase community involvement, we have to draw in the village and Grassmere. Because they're important to the overall vote.
But I
There are a lot of things
understand.
you don't have to vote on though, right? I mean,
Right.
You know,
But-
you gotta know what you're.
Pinardville doesn't it have the
but
greater
zoning
density, so
changes.
you've actually got more people.
Go.
So if you get out and get active,
Zoning changes.
and get involved instead of just letting, you know, it sounds like some people think that.
Unfortunately, though, when it comes to voting, Pinardville has the least number of voters. They have one-third the number of registered voters in comparison to the high school portion, which is Grassmere and the village.
Right.
And the mountain area.
And why is that though? Elderly people maybe, a lot of elderly.
I guess
Well,
it
you
seems
also
like that you
understand
actually do have more people
Yeah,
if they were just registered, so you guys actually run the place.
Well,
It's
there's,
more people than the village, but not the overall rest of Goffstown.
That's right.
There's
Goffstown's
36 square
huge.
miles in
Right.
Goffstown,
Yeah.
and there's only about 1 or maybe 2 or 3, 4 maybe square miles in Pinardville.
Yeah.
and you also have to
This is-
understand, this town at one time had more Canadian residents who were not United States citizens.
Right.
So
That's
some,
right.
a lot of
That's
those
Canadian.
voters aren't able to vote because they are not United States citizens.
Right. Do we care about healthy lifestyles, families, and community?
Yes.
Is that important? Healthy?
There's still a high population.
Yes. Healthy? Healthy?
Yes.
We care about
I don't want to
healthy?
be dictated to what I can eat, like what's going on with Michelle Obama and hope that I can have a piggy fry. I mean, it depends on
Are we going to outlaw
You're not
the
gonna be
big gold?
dictated that.
my street.
New York didn't get away with it.
They didn't?
No.
Got overruled.
Yeah.
Because they were pointing to just one specific.
All right. So, let's see. So this is all great. So I was just saying, you said you need a Facebook page. You guys can just have this one when we're done with it. You can just take over Plan Pinardville page, and that can your plan for your future. The thing that's interesting when we do something like this, what tends to happen is, like I've heard it while we've been in here, because oh, nice to meet you. I didn't know you lived 3 doors down from me. You know, that kind of stuff's happening. So you guys are starting to know each other, and now you start to have something that you can kind of, plan.
But-
And when you come and you're organized and you go to these things, then you all stand up and say, "Here's what we want." Then all of a sudden, that's different than if 1 or 2 people come up and say, "Well, I'm from Pinardville, here's what we want to do," you know.
Right, and the other thing is that you also have to understand it's great to have stuff on the internet for us people who are savvy with the computer,
Right.
but you still have a high population of elderly who, not even elderly, but there is still a high population here that does not get on the internet or even own a computer. So we have all these beautiful signs all around town. Bartlett School has one, but not very often do you see meetings posted up there saying there's a public meeting or anything like that for the residents here in this town to know. The first sign you ever see with any of that in is the police station sign. Well, not too many people go that way every day.
Right.
So I think that we need to be more aware of those events.
School, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
On the school sign.
Okay.
I mean, the gentleman at the gas station often has a sign saying what's going on in town.
Yeah, Billy's put up a new sign, and it's one of those revolving.
Yeah. Because that's a lot of times I see some things there, but not always.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, so What else? What do we need to know? What do we, you guys, what about
What is the the minimum lot size requirement for Pinardville? Is it 50 by 100, 90 by 100, or 100 by 100?
For the residential 2 zone, it's 100 by 100. 10,000 square foot is the very minimum, but you may actually have to do more than that because if you don't have water or sewer availability to your lot, you know, if you have one or the other, you get a little bit more, and if you have, if you have one or the other, you get more. If you have 0, then you get a bigger lot size.
Now, if you have a smaller lot, for instance, a 90 by 100 lot, and if your house burns, you fall under the grandfather law, don't you automatically?
Yeah,
where you can rebuild?
There is an ability to rebuild within 2 years. If your house goes down, you have to rebuild it in essentially the same location and size as what you had before. But you do have that grandfathered status, I guess, that will keep you there if your house burns down. Yeah.
And R2s, if you're a residential 2, is it the same size lot also? Or does it require a bigger lot?
What, then the residential
If you have an
one?
R2?
You were talking about 2, weren't you?
Yeah, I was talking about residential 2 to begin with. So yeah, you would have to depend. I mean, if yours is 90 by 100, it'd be a non-conforming lot. If it burnt, you would still get that time to rebuild it, but otherwise you'd have to get like a special exception or something to, build on a non-conforming lot. Rebuild on a non-conforming lot.
Thank you.
4 by 10 more feet.
4 by 10 more feet, but that might be difficult.
Is it 100 by 100?
Because then your neighbor might be non-conforming.
Right.
If his lot's only 100
It's
by
a
100.
domino.
100 by 100.
All right, so what else? What do you guys want us to know? Are we on track some? Are we way off base here? Are we hearing you?
One thing that I thought would be a pretty interesting and cool thing for Pinardville to kind of adopt is, similar to the village, they've got the Main Street program that sort of, does these events for everybody to come down and, be a part of the village atmosphere and that kind of thing. There's no events that happen in Pinardville really.
Well, there's that one little hot dog kind of thing that
No,
happens.
he stopped doing that.
He stopped doing it, yeah.
Yeah, he stopped doing that
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. But then again, you're separating Goffstown and Pinardville.
But that's okay. I mean, are
If it's okay.
we wanting Pinardville to have its own identity? I
Well,
mean,
the
that's-
thing is, that's the point. At this point, everything we do has to do with Goffstown, our schools, everything is Goffstown based.
Yep.
We live in Pinardville, and this has been going on for years. Where, and years, and
Maybe a
I don't,
century.
yes, and I don't think it'll ever stop. Where Pinardville has always been, and as Dana said, the backflow. If something's not going to go in Goffstown, why should it be put here? For the rest of us, now all these changes, I'm all for doing whatever is going to make Pinardville nice. If it's going to help my taxes not going through the roof, I'm all for it. But the fact that everything here is separating the two towns, we're part of Goffstown whether they like it or not. We pay our taxes to Goffstown. The police is Goffstown. Our fire is Goffstown. But yet, Pinardville, I'm getting it all the time, and I'm sure everybody else is. We have a Manchester mailing address. I send for something, and if they put Goffstown, New Hampshire, it won't get delivered to me.
But that's the post office.
Think about it.
Exactly, but once again, because we're separating and we're calling it Pinardville, not Goffstown, people are not seeing the line.
But the reason now, when I get asked about this, and I've had people ask me, and I've been here about 15 years, and they say, well, why don't you Pinardville people make up your minds? Are you Goffstown or are you Manchester? And I said, that's where the character comes in, and that's where the historical, you can't touch Pinardville historically. I just went and visited my neighbor right across the street where Edmund Pinard lived. We took my husband and I right down into the basement way in the back where the original bark from axes were put up in these little fallout shelters where to stay away from Indians. This place is amazing. It's right on my street. So what shuts people up is to remind them that Pinardville, we're not looking to separate. We're not looking to measure Goffstown against Manchester. We are a small historical district, and we have been that way. We are still that way, and we will remain that way. You cannot take away our history. You can't.
Yeah, you
I
know
don't
what
want
happens
to
is-
go away and just think of Goffstown. Because, like you said, it is
It is.
right. And
We
there's
know
a
that.
lot of people here in town who've been fighting to keep the name of Pinardville instead of Goffstown.
Yes.
But I do have to admit, I would rather have a non-Manchester address because, one, it is a problem when you try to get things delivered to your homes.
Yeah.
But two, there are people in Goffstown who make statements who say, well, if we don't like it, they're Manchester anyways, send them to Manchester. Well, you know what? That puts a lot of bad taste in people in this town.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you
I'm
know
not
what?
saying
I don't
I
want to
want-
move to Manchester. I live in Pinardville and Goffstown for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, why does Pinardville get that kind of disrespect when we hold such a history?
That's what my
always
point
been.
is.
But
It's
we,
been
if
like
you
that forever.
ask, if you ask Goffstown and Manchester, where's the heart and the pulse of Goffstown, Manchester? Pinardville is the heart. We are the pulse that brings it together. So if you destroy the pulse and the heart, then that
But I
separateness
think
comes in
I
with
don't
Goffstown
want.
and
That's my.
Manchester.
I don't want.
And
the
that's why they
separation.
shouldn't touch. Pinardville needs to be that connection.
Right.
You know, in
That-
most cities around the country, there are clear and distinct neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Every city has them. They're broken up. In Italy, in Siena, Italy, there are these 7 neighborhoods. They're called 8 neighborhoods of Contrada. And they have this huge horse race called the Palio in their main town square, literally a paved plaza, and they bring in dirt, and they race around these buildings from the 1500s, and people bareback, and they fall off and they get crushed, and it's great. Everybody's packed in the middle.
That's good.
The horses go around. So what happens though is it's a huge matter of pride. Whoever wins the race, you get the flag, and you just, and kind of rub it in their face. But they're all Siena. And that competition makes this neighborhood want to do better than this neighborhood and better than this neighborhood. We have the best fountain. We have the best park. We have the most beautiful building. On and on and on.
We
But
have the
they're all
best
still
plot.
Siena. Yeah, you guys have the best plot.
I don't think any of these changes are going to make it any different tomorrow than it was 50 years ago, where Goffstown's still not going to like us. I think we do need to get that zip code changed so that Goffstown realizes that, yeah, we are part of Goffstown.
Yeah, I think I will say the counterpoint to that is I've heard it's good for some of the businesses though.
It's been that
for
business.
Manchester.
Been here 41
Zip code,
years,
not
I've
that that
never
matters
known.
to you. I'm just as a counterpoint. Some of the businesses like that, but I don't know if that's.
I don't have a problem.
Well, I'm
We never
glad
had
you
trouble
don't,
with
but the
that.
last time I bought a refrigerator, which was a couple months ago,
Yeah.
I gave him my address with my mailing address. It ended up out in Goffs Falls because there's another Joffrey Street in Manchester.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Same way.
They gave him the right zip code, but if they don't realize it's out here, it ends up by the airport.
Everybody knows what Pinardville is.
You know, we had
Not
a,
everybody knows what. It's not even on the map.
as we're talking about,
I've seen it on the map.
as we're talking about the, as we're talking about the
I've been
incentives
here
that
21 years, I don't care.
you're proposing, I haven't seen a flagpole where we can fly an American flag. I haven't seen a Veterans Memorial. We had a Korean War Veterans Memorial next to Cody's
Yeah.
that they wanted out of there, that way there was proposed some grass. I'm not really, it's moved someplace else.
Next to Jock.
Next to Jocks, okay, it's moved next to Jocks. Well, there you go.
That's ironic.
Right. Now, that's a Korean War memorial. We don't have a memorial for our veterans, which I think is a center point. An American flag with a veterans memorial of some sort is a center point to patriotism and to community.
I like that idea.
I don't see one anywhere in any of these proposals. I'd like to see one.
Yeah, that would be
I'd
nice.
I'd also, especially an American flag, when you're coming up this Mass Road.
There used
Right
to
now,
be
Great
one.
idea.
That's cool.
Second point, the clock that you mentioned was purchased by the Rotary Club. There was that little Rotary Park on that corner. So we need to involve Rotary.
Yeah.
I don't see a Rotarian in this room. I'm a Rotarian, but I haven't been to a meeting for a while. So, but we need to involve the Rotary if you want to think about putting a clock.
Yeah, we totally took their clock.
Totally take it.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
We need their, yeah,
That's great. We actually fixed that corner, but it still belonged to Surratt, and we never got.
Well, it's nice of you to let you do it, though.
Well, I don't blame them. It was a good, it was a nice improvement.
Yeah.
But so we need to get the Rotary involved in this sort of proposal. But I think an American flag lit up 24 hours, lit up at night, a nice big American flag, I think is really important to the center of our identity.
That'd be great. Yeah, you see it in a lot of the town commons. You see that. That's where they put their flag.
Oh, there is a flag at Abington.
Oh, yeah, we did see one. That's right. Yeah.
It's a flag at Abington.
That's the rule.
Yeah.
American
But
flag's
to
not
get-
supposed to be flown at night.
Unless
It'd
it's
be lighted.
lit.
It'd be lighted.
Unless it's lit.
You gotta light it.
Right.
But to get back to what Brian was saying about Main Street,
I was trying to get to a point of, Goffstown Village has a Main Street Coalition group that, they do events and everything down there. It would be awesome if Pinardville, kind of gathered together like, a group of you all to get together and come up with events that would happen in Pinardville, specific to Pinardville, that, people could then feel like, we're coming to a community thing and we're, doing community.
Dan
Well,
LaRochelle used to do one in
Right.
August
Right.
every year.
Pinard Day?
It was
Edmund
Pinardville Day. He had all the commercial
Yeah.
people gave money to it.
Horse carriage ride.
Yeah, we had a
Get a parade or,
band.
A band and a horse.
But
French Canadian Day?
no, it was Pinardville Appreciation Day.
No, I'm just saying, we
Yes.
got some other ideas. You can
Even
make
if-
Why
vegetables
did that
all
stop?
over.
It
On
stopped
the-
because it was costing him more money
Yes.
than he
Right.
was
he
worth.
was almost
footing
sold
the
that
bill
property
for
at
most
that.
of it. Each of the businesses that participated paid a fee.
Yeah.
But
Right.
what he was charging them was so minimal that he was still footing the entire thing, and it got to a point where he just couldn't afford to do it any longer.
It's wonderful, a horse and carriage, but you ride right
But
around.
my
right around
question,
the
Brian,
road.
is where would we have something like that if we haven't got
Right.
the center?
Right.
I mean, that's again, that goes to this plan of.
It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
You
You can have it at Surratt Field.
You set it up.
We used to
and
do
try
it
to
in
organize
Shaw's
it.
parking lot. We used to have
Do
a
it,
carnival.
Simultaneously.
That hasn't
One thing you
happened.
could do is you could go ahead and start doing it where the center will be, because you don't want to get used to doing it in the wrong place. And then you do it there, you just kind of shut down this little piece there, traffic will get around, it's a big day, And so, what's everybody doing in the parking lot? Like, this is our future center of town, and we're having, Pinard Day here.
That's wonderful if it's sustainable. Main Street has a paid salaried position to keep Main Street going, which I would venture to guess that Main Street would not go if there wasn't a director that was salaried. I don't know if it would work well with the volunteer organization. It may, but I doubt it. So as much as I don't want to salary another position, it is, as much as I don't want to salary another position, I think the idea of, we have civic groups that meet here, we have Lions and Rotary, I don't know if the Optimist still does, but they're still somewhere in this area. The idea is to get a coordinated effort to have that. We had a business association, and I was in it, and it, Claude LaRoche, there's a lot of us that were in this, and we were solid in it for a while. But it didn't really go anywhere because
on the art
no one
contest,
director.
On the art contest thing that we did, we got five children to respond to the art contest, and they came up with some children's ideas. But one of the on the literary, there was one literary submission, and the girl submitted an idea that we should have a Valentine's Day parade, and the street should be all pink and sparkly. And it was like a really cute idea. But then I sit and think about it, and I'm like, man, Pinardville could easily put together some type of special day parade and parade down the road, and you wouldn't have to have a huge organization necessarily to do it, but
Yeah, but then also, then you have to wonder, are the businesses gonna be willing to, I don't know, halt the traffic for an hour so that they can parade down the road? Because this is
Bring a
the
brown bag
street.
lunch and everybody meet at the spot.
You get some groups together that are willing to put a float
Pop-up parade.
together, and yeah. I mean,
Right
it doesn't have to cost
Parade
a
down
lot.
Mass Road without police escort, everybody's gonna run over.
No, if you do it together and it's like, oh, look, there's pedestrians.
Right, and every business can bring out on that day something special to sell or
If
give
they're
away
willing
or
to.
promote their business. I'm sure they'd be willing to, if it brings lots of people.
Yeah, I mean, they, well, like with the Dan LaRochelle, they supported him doing those for years. You know, they may not have been making any money, not making, but breaking even,
Yeah.
but they were there to support him. I don't understand, why they wouldn't want to support us now.
But if you bring in vendors, that they're the ones that are making the money. so
This
no
takes
one comes to the
organization.
ball.
This takes people to organize. You're talking about events here, and they don't just happen.
It
There's
takes,
a lot of work.
it takes initiative.
But you know what?
It takes somebody to.
So we've got the
It
initiative.
takes initiative, and it takes a
And
lot
now
of
you have to take it to the
coordination.
next
You
level.
know, and I'm going to be honest with you, that Pinardville is like the working hub.
Yeah.
So people work really hard and they work long hours and they get home and they're tired and they're having a hard enough time finding time to connect with their own families, let alone connect with their communities. I mean, my neighborhood, which is a dead-end street on a road where someone has to move over if you meet somebody else, you don't see your neighbors until the spring. Because everybody's like, did you have a good winter? Because, you get out of your car, you're tired. You go in the house, you stay home, you put wood in your wood stove, and everybody's in. And then in the spring, it's like, hey, did you have a good winter?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, well, the good news is that, like I said, when we start talking about things like this, now you at least know where you might do something like this one day, or why you might do something like this, and so it starts that discussion. And what we see is, in some communities we work in, I mean, literally, these people meet each other. They make groups. They make T-shirts. They say, friends of Plan Pinardville, make the town common. Whatever it is, you move that stuff forward. You start doing things, and it happens organically and naturally. But John's right; it takes organization to do it. So if you want this stuff to happen, you got to first decide. We want to go out and first vote for this stuff to happen, and then you start taking steps to make it all happen in earnest and figure out creative solutions. So, anything else that we didn't talk about that somebody's dying to talk about? We've covered a lot tonight, but I'll stay here until you're done. So,
Might be good to just get feedback on the zoning concepts.
let me ask you a couple things. How high is too high here? Or, what's the anybody got a height limit in their mind? How many stories? How many feet?
3.
Yeah.
3 stories is good. We got 3 right now in the village, I think. Are there any 4 in the village?
3, there may be 1 or 2.
Tara, did you see any 4s when you were documenting?
Do we have any kind of buildings here in town that are above 3? Some of these old buildings? Some of these old apartment places?
Yeah.
So,
So 3
four
stories and lower,
apartments.
not just all
It's
3
three.
stories.
Yeah.
So
No,
one-
3 and lower. 1, 2, and 3.
1 to 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
St. A's, right? I mean, that's-
Oh, St. A's, yeah, they got the
Alumni
tall
halls.
tower.
Well, alumni hall, but then,
We've got
That's
old
different.
schools today.
yeah.
Is there an old school?
Oh,
today?
yeah, that's
Everybody
the one
went
on the way
old
to the
school.
village.
How tall is that?
Villa Augustina?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so that's
yeah.
like that's the tallest building in town. It sounds like
probably.
besides the steeple on the column.
Oh, well.
What
Let's jump in.
about
You're instigating now.
who needs? What else do we need to know about some other Cody kind of zoning issues? Usually the height's the one people
I guess
get hung up on.
when you talk about zone codes, that's laws. And you're talking about somehow creating some way to legalize promoting healthy living. Laws were never meant to do that.
Oh no, that's part of the plan.
But that's also going to be part of how
But
the
what
code is
happens-
designed based on that.
Well, if you make
And-
these places of character, then it is a healthy place. That's what happens when people
I know,
walk
but I'm
by.
trying to say that that's not what zoning codes were designed to do.
Actually,
It was, they were
Create
rooted,
healthier
they actually were
living.
rooted in health.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Because,
people actually walk
because
places.
the
but
industrial guys were blowing up the residential guys.
that part, yeah, that,
Essentially.
you not kill somebody with your gas line, yeah, but that's not the health that you're talking about. You're talking about walking and biking,
Yeah.
promoting that. And I don't think that zoning laws were ever intended to promote a lifestyle like that, which is a choice. You can't make some people walk next door.
Well, right now we're not
So,
giving
I
people
mean,
the
you
choice.
can't really legislate
We're only
that.
giving the bravest, boldest, and most sturdy the choice to live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I
It means
think that's
walking or biking.
what it's talking about, giving
So what
them
we're
the
trying to do is
ability to
level
have
the
a healthy
playing
lifestyle.
field.
They
Right now,
want-
the cars are kicking everyone's butt, just to be honest. Cars rule Pinardville. They don't rule Manchester, just so you know, the downtown. They're there.
No, but you don't want
can
to go
walk
downtown
around.
at night anymore.
That's okay. That's
Then
fair enough.
why do you wanna go
That's
to
not
downtown?
part of the having a nice
There's
streetscape.
cops
though.
downtown because of all this.
So right now what we're talking about is leveling the playing field and giving everybody the choice. Well, you can choose not to walk on walkable streets,
Right.
but you can't choose to walk on unwalkable streets. You can't. You know, you
But
wanna
look at
risk it.
Manchester Elm, saying that nobody wants to walk down there. You go down there on a Friday night or Saturday night,
A lot of
in the
people
summer
go.
or in the
Oh,
spring,
yeah,
when it's
a lot
warm
of
enough,
people.
you see tons of people. I mean, it is basically mobs of people going from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant.
Bar to bar to bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
But
not that that's what
that
we
is
want
us.
to choose for here, is to have these bars
But that's what they're
constantly.
promoting.
Sure.
No, but we see a lot of, when I go into Manchester, and my family's part of the YMCA, and children and teenagers and seniors, we're all coming and going and just walking Elm Street to go for an ice cream. And so, yeah, there's a whole lot more going on than the bars, and you're right. To see too much of the bar is not a
What do the
good
kids
thing.
do here?
How about
Yeah,
well-lit
there's not
sidewalks? I don't even think about it, but
Yeah.
how well-lit are the sidewalks going from here to
Yeah.
Pinard Street, for instance?
Not
Or
really.
not.
I
Okay,
think
well,
that
you
they're
wouldn't go-
great.
You
I'm
wouldn't
looking
do it at
outside
8
now, and
o'clock
I'm seeing
at
kind of
night,
these the creepy yellow, like the lights that
Right.
cast this
Right.
yellow
Right.
glow on everyone. You don't look very attractive when
Right,
you walk down
they're
the
not
street.
very comforting to walk
Right.
at night,
Right.
which may,
But some of that has to do with the fact that you still have
Lighting.
families on Mass Road, and who wants to have a light shining into their bedroom, no matter how much you know.
I have one shining in mine, and I can say no. I have to put a foil on my window so I can actually have dark. to
Oh,
sleep.
don't start talking about tinfoil. Come on.
Hey, I
You
have.
tell me I can't talk about sustainability.
No,
You keep talking
no.
about
I have
tinfoil.
one in my window to keep the street light
I
from
know.
going in,
I
like
did that
keeping
in
me
college,
awake,
too. I
and
had
that is
tinfoil all over my window.
So you
That
can
was so I could
overlight
sleep all day long.
situations.
overlight.
Yes, and it becomes
No.
intrusive.
You can also direct light.
Yeah.
That's right.
And part of it, you can have, in your standards, you can have dark sky light standards, where they literally, there are certain lights, fixtures that are made to only cast light down. They don't go out or out. So there's all kinds of cool things you can do. What else?
Thought on the
Uses.
zoning. Any consideration to some sort of transitional zoning between the commercial and the residential?
Well, the problem is when it's one lot deep, it's like
Yeah.
it's impossible. You pretty much
The next block, would that be a different zone that kind of transitions between the two?
None is own zone. What I would suggest is, and what we typically do when we have the standards, so that we call it appropriate transitions. Where you start to the one building has to relate to the building behind it, those kind of things. You already have the rub set up, so there may be some things we can do to help alleviate it. But making its own zone, just one lot deep, and there be there are 20 lots in town that are zoned in that one zone, it makes it code just kind of
One of the things that on that regulating plan that Brian showed, where you had the industrial section and you had the single-family residential right against it.
That's an example.
One of the reasons that they ran that the middle zone through there was to create.
I'm thinking more like Bass Road, where they're having an issue with the mobile station with the house right behind it. That's a zoning. I don't know if there's should be multi-family or something, or apartments or something like that, a small scale apartment. or something,
Yeah,
soften that transition.
The way that the zoning will be set up, the form of that thing will be compatible. There are form-based, character-based gas stations, that are set up to deal with it. So it gets when we start focusing less on the use, and we can deal with some of those issues. And in the end, what happens is, while most people wouldn't want a gas station next to their house, they'll like the character-based gas station better than the other one. That's kind of the way it tends to work out. So What about,
I think that's a good idea what you said though too, because I'm in that, I have that problem because the house right next to me is commercial. And the commercial seems to be coming into the side streets of Mass Road. And as a neighbor, I mean, I don't want a gas station, right next to me. I don't think that's fair, So there should be something done about that. The house next to me right now is not being used as commercial. It's a single-family home, and someone's living in there. But later on, I mean, who's to say what he could do with the property? And that would infringe on my rights,
Yeah, and that's why when we did this, the regulating plan, we took the existing zoning, especially in that situation, and just said if it's commercial, it's going to be the darker purple. But we're not going to make more of that going into the neighborhood. We're going to leave what's residential alone, so we don't have more of it. Have we sufficiently dealt with property rights kind of stuff? Is anybody concerned about that still?
Always.
Yes.
Forever.
Is all of Mass Road zone commercial?
Currently, or what we propose?
Currently.
Currently, all except for like 2 lots. There's like 2
Okay, there's
residential.
both sides.
On Mass Road.
Yes.
On
yes.
Mass Road, that's not so.
Yeah, there's like the 2 outliers that are there. I don't know how they've still survived with residential or whatever, but for whatever reason there are 2. 2 or 4.
Okay. Because I know the one where we live in Minor, it is.
3? No, Brian said maybe
commercial.
3.
It's a house, but
And
it's.
they're
And
right,
we
they're
were told
right.
it was.
Yeah, they're all together. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, well, we'll still be here for the next several days. You guys gonna come? Who's coming back on Tuesday night? Yay! All
okay. I'll be
right.
here.
Okay.
The thorn in your side will be present, Brian.
No way. You just keep it interesting. Okay, so that's it for tonight. If you don't have any more questions or comments, we're good. Thank you so much for your input, and we're signing.